Alright, so what's going on YouTube? Um, Coming at you, I guess, with another video here. This time, it's more or less like a review, I want to say, or just kind of like a first impressions, uh, thoughts, and yeah, I guess that fits the description on Monster Hunter Rise. The game's been out for I don't know, maybe like a month or two. I've been playing it for got a couple of hours on it, I guess. Far enough to where not end game. I'm not even in the high rank missions yet, but sort of like in between. I think I beat all the beginner missions. I'm on my way to get to high rank. I just haven't played for a while, but I did play enough to just come up with like my thoughts so far. Everything that's left for me to do is kind of like what I've been doing, just more grind and just the harder monsters, which is nothing wrong. I'm expecting to get to that level. You know, it's always fun. But I do have like some things I want to talk about so far. You know that I've been like just things I've noticed, things I could like talk about from like previous games from the Monster Hunter series. Primarily from like, well, to start, this is like the speed of the game. Like I'd say this game is a lot faster, like movement wise. Just in general, like they don't hold your hand as much. I think in World it had this trouble where every little thing you wanted to do is just like this. That's I hated the helper, your ally. That was just a bug, and then the the little their faces will pop out constantly on like the side, just pure nuisance. They were terrible. I think like 10 hours into that game, and then you were still like in the early parts. I think I got 10 hours in this game for sure, and I'm like about to be on like the high rank missions. So it's a lot faster in terms of like just progressing. It could be just as grindy, like in terms of like finding the rare item. Like let's say you need like a rare, let's say I'll just say a Rathalos plate. Since like the plate is the hardest thing to find from him, you might do like 3 or 4 runs before you see a plate, or you could get lucky on your first try. So drop rate wise from monsters, it's about the same as World. It's definitely not as bad as like Freedom or Freedom Unite. That had ridiculous drop rates. They were like so low. That was even grindier, but it was fast. And this is just as fast, I'd say, in terms of like how, um, not just progression wise, but also just movement in general. You feel your character more just faster. I think in World their mistake was they made the game like too. They try to be too realistic with it. They put like these animations, these graphics that made you seem like you were in there, but and coming back to Rise, it just feels more arcadic. It just feels more like that PSP version where it was just so fast. Um, even the 3DS versions, once they picked that up, um, Generations was kind of like, in my opinion, it was kind of like a failure. I think 4 Ultimate for the 3DS was, I think, the peak. I think it went like, well, the PlayStation 2 version, the first Monster Hunter, was just kind of like building the footwork, and then you had Freedom come out, and then Freedom Unite was just added. It was kind of like its DLC, and that was I spent so many hours on that. And he came up to like the Capcom switched, they decided to not make a Monster Hunter for the Vita. They decided they're gonna pair up with Nintendo. So you saw the game Tri for the Wii and 3 Ultimate for the 3DS, and added like that whole swimming mechanic, which was garbage. It was terrible. And then 4 Ultimate was kind of like what Freedom Unite had, but amped up to like, it was just like, it was what the PSP started. 4 Ultimate was like, it was basically like the other step. I think the on 3, we're kind of like experimenting too much with the water, and that just it made the game feel so slow again. After Ultimate, 4 Ultimate Generations came out, and I think they had a 2G only in Japan, which was kind of like how Freedom Unite was at first. It was called Monster Hunter 2G, but it was only in Japan. Once they brought it over to the West, they made it Unite, which was good. I mean, the difficulty was pretty good, but I didn't really get a chance to play. I thought Generations was kind of gimmicky with the whole powers from like the weapons. Like every weapon had like special abilities. They were good at first, but then I don't know, they seemed overpowered, and just not too many people. I didn't really get into Generations. 4 was the one I remember spending hours on, because it just felt crisp. It felt like it added to what the PSP had established. And then World came out, and it was pretty good. I'd say it was pretty good, but going back to how slow it felt, even how like just moving around in that game just made it so slow. And I'm glad to say that like Rise, like the speed of Rise is like on par to like those old school. I want to go back to like saying that like it just feels more archaic. It's not as real. They're not trying to be as realistic as possible. They're just using what the Switch could do, and just the flow of the game. Just it's like it's at its best. It's not as bad as World is. This has like the slow gameplay. It feels like too realistic, which makes it it makes everything slow down. This I'm glad that it feels like more fluent. It may not look as fluent because like going back to like that archaic saying, like this game I feel like I could cancel like animations to other animations. There's move canceling. World has a bit of that, but just since the game in general feels slow, like you feel it once you play this game. It's just a little bit faster. And going on to like being faster now, you now have I think in World they gave you 2 cats. Like if you went on a quest alone, you were able to have 2 cats with you. In this game they scrapped that entirely. They scrapped 1 cat. Like 2 cats is enough, and I would agree. And they finally added dogs, which is really good. And dogs in general. I mean, not in general, but just talking about the game. They're called Palomits. Palutites. I don't know. Palomits. I'll say Palomits. I don't know. But they're just dogs. They finally have like. I like the fact that you could just mount them. You could chase the animals. You could chase the creatures now. Like everything is it's pretty good. That's going back to like the whole being faster. Like dog is a mount. It will just get you anywhere. It's pretty sick. And he attacks too. But they also give you the cat. The cat returns. Only in offline. If you're by yourself, you have your cat and your dog. if you choose. I mean, you could always turn both of them off. But the dog is he's just so I'll say vital because the fact that you can mount him and basically you can traverse the map like way faster. And these maps are big. You know, if you they're like just as big as the world maps. And in world, you have to fast travel everywhere if you want to keep up, which meant unlocking sub camps, which do return in Rise. But the fact that you don't need to be running around and fast traveling through camps. You could just have your mount right there, and he's pretty fast. You know, dogs are pretty fast. They help you fight and they help you walk around. So it's pretty good. If you play off online, the cat goes away, but your dog sticks with you. So you can have four hunters, and every hunter brings their dog around. So it's a mess. I think it's a little too overpowering because the monsters do target the dogs at times. So if you have 4 players plus the 4 dogs, the monster is just getting destroyed from all angles, you know. Because the dogs do have their health bar, so the monster will target the dogs a few times. So you could like potentially, the monster will not even see you at times because he's got so many targets. So it's a little OP. It's a bit broken, but it's how they made it. Which, I mean, I'm guessing I'm still like in the mid, like I mentioned. Maybe at the higher ranks, monsters would just obliterate the dog. Our dogs just might not be as useful because they do have a cap. You know, they don't do that much damage, but the fact that they can distract the monster is good enough for the player because that gives the player like just the time to sharpen or heal, or you could just mount the dog and just run away to like recover. So that's just my take on the mount. It's a good addition. I'm just waiting to see what will happen like once the higher ranks are reached. You know, will it be as useful? Because as it is pretty broken just fighting like a Rathalos, and the Rathalos has 8 targets around him. It's just a bit too much. So, well, since I mentioned online, the online feels pretty good. I mean, for being like a console that is like, that doesn't have an Ethernet port, you have to have your own Ethernet port for the damn thing. It's not that bad, you know. If you're just on Wi-Fi, it's pretty good. I mean, if you played 4 Ultimate on 3DS, that had a pretty good netcode for Monster Hunter, and I'd say Generations 2 up to a point. And I'm mentioning those games because they were on portable consoles, which basically meant that to play online, it was a Wi-Fi thing. So the Wi-Fi in this, since the netcode in this game is kind of like Wi-Fi, I'm sure if you play a wired, it'll feel a lot better. But since it's wireless, I was playing online wireless. I don't have any footage of online wireless, but it felt pretty good. It wasn't like laggy at all. So they did a pretty good job. I guess Capcom knows its shit when it comes to some online aspect. I mean, they run Street Fighter and stuff. So they know what they're doing with netcode. I guess they put more effort on this one than you would expect. So I think I mentioned the older games and some of the new features. So there's like, obviously there's new maps. I didn't see a new weapon in terms of like, I think World had, no, not even. I don't know what was the newest weapon. I think the newest weapon in general was the glaive, the insect glaive, which is back, and every other previous weapon is also back. So in weapons, it seems to be like it's all the weapons are here. Oh, this like new feature I noticed was now finally it took so many games to finally let you know when your weapon's about to lose its sharpness. You know, since way back they've been your weapon will be glowing green and then one hit and then boom, weapon sharpness is now decreased, even up to world. But now you finally see your gauge slowly come down, and once it's done, it breaks, and then you finally down to the lower level of your sharpness level. So there's also new areas. I think I played on the. I know there's a volcano, a valley, a desert, like a plain, like just like plains, like a field of plain, just kind of like the first area, and like a snow area. So far, there's like 5 maps. I'm sure there's more. Like maybe, I don't know just yet, but yeah, I'll have to come back, make a separate video to see to make like the final verdict of what this game has to offer. So basically, just endgame. Why I'm thinking how endgame will be. To be honest, I think there is high ranks. I don't know if it'll be like G rank. I'm not so sure. I don't have like a feeling that there might not be a G rank. I think it'll just reach like, if you're familiar with the franchise, you know that it's low rank, high rank, and then that's about it. And then there's G rank, but G rank is always added later. Like, you know, if you go back to like the history of Monster Hunter, there's always been Monster Hunter 2 Freedom, Monster Hunter Freedom 2, and then like a year later they came out with the expansion, which is Monster Hunter Freedom Unite, and that added G ranks. I think they did the same thing for 3. I think it came out for the Wii trial, and then they made 3 Ultimate, and that I guess that added G rank. I don't know anything about 4. I think 4 just came out Ultimate as its standalone. So there's that, and then you have the Monster Hunter Generations, and then you had Generations 2, which was Japan exclusive, and that added G rank. And now looking back at World, you have World, and then it ended at high rank, and then you had Iceborne come out about a year later. So my prediction right now is that there will be a Rise 2. I don't know what, like it might be like Monster Hunter Rise 2G or 2, or Monster Hunter Rise something, and that will basically be the G rank. Because I don't think right now there is a G rank, and I'm sure I could find out just by looking at other people's just to see like what's the end game, but I haven't reached the end game, so I don't want to spoil it for myself. But that's just based on what I know from like the franchise. They always try to come. So far they've always done this. They come out with the base game and then they add the harder missions later. So who knows? There might be an expansion. I don't think Rise will end as it is. There's got to be something else to it. So I think I've rambled enough. I think that about does it for just kind of like this, my first thoughts of the game. Is it a good game? Yes. If you like Monster Hunter, I recommend it. It's more or less the same thing as any other Monster Hunter, but the new features are worth the try. It's pretty good, and if you don't, well, maybe when the expansion comes out, maybe waiting for the expansion might be the way to go. I am Dollars to Donuts, there will be a expansion to it. If it's not an expansion, then a 2. It's a standalone. But yeah, I don't think Rise will be the end of it. I think Rise is just a start, and then they're gonna drop a huge expansion like they did with Iceborne, or they're just gonna come out with the G ranks. But yeah, that's my prediction. It will not end on Rise. But that's it for what I got to say. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys soon. Alright, peace.